Marriott Bonvoy is the official hotel partner of US Soccer. Join Marriott Bonvoy today to get closer to the game with exclusive perks, unforgettable experiences, and benefits that go beyond the pitch. Spring Hill Suites, part of Marriott Bonvoy, offers complimentary hot breakfast and spacious all-suite accommodations, perfect for the whole team, with room for up to 6 guests. Make your next getaway a win. Learn more at springhillsuites.marriott.com.
Welcome into another edition of the James Boyd Podcast. I, of course, am James Boyd, joined by my editor, Jim Aiello. And Jim, the Phillip Rivers era is over. The Colts season, more or less, is over. And the future awaits. So I wish I could start with more shebang, more positivity, knowing that Phillip Rivers went out there and won his last game. But that did not happen. And here we are. The Colts have now lost 6 straight games. 7 of their last 8, and they are the first team in 30 years to start 8-2 and miss the playoffs. So how about that for an intro?
I was going to try to spin it positive for a minute there, but you've given me no outs.
Well, we'll start with this. Although it wasn't a win, Phillip Rivers, the emotion he displayed in that game, the reasoning for why he doesn't think any game is meaningless afterwards. And trust me, for those listening, we'll get into all of the big picture stuff, all the stuff that really matters. But how much did that resonate with you when I was following my story? And I'll try to talk you into the whole, this kind of is a big deal that this guy went out here and tried to do it and then gave some awesome perspective. I think not only that reaches football players, but people in all walks of life.
Yeah. So the little behind the scenes is that I was like, I had talked to James in the morning before the game and said like, hey, like they're out. The story is the future. Like Carly and the sisters, like their decision, like that's what the story is. Like, and James was like, yeah, for sure. Like that's what we're going to do. And then after the game, James called me and was like, listen, we need to do Phillip Rivers and and I was hesitant because I was like, I don't know about the emotional stuff. And I think fans want to talk about the future. And then the more you talked about it, the more you told me what he said. And then obviously after I read what you wrote, I'm really glad we did it. I'm really glad you wrote it and we that we put that out there because there's plenty of time to talk about the future. We're going to talk about it in a minute here, but like it did resonate with me, man. Like I like the idea that nothing we do is meaningless. Like it all means something. It's all important. It's all part of who you are. It does. Again, you don't have to overrate things or like not everything you do mean, you're not saving lives kind of a thing. I don't think that's what Phillip Rivers was saying. He just means it's like, to me, what he meant was like, if you're going to do something, anything, just put your heart and soul into it and make it count. Like do your best at it no matter what and make that the person that you are. And I appreciated that. And listening to him, like, I don't, to be honest, again, like I think there's some people who would give that message where I might roll my eyes a little bit at that kind of thing, but like, because I'm not really for the mushy stuff for me. But like when Phillip Rivers says it, I know where it's coming from, and it just feels genuine, and it feels like him. And like I said, I couldn't help but appreciate it. You can't help but not appreciate how much he loves the game, how much he loves coming back, how much I think he kind of honored himself and the game by the way he played. It was just, like I said, it was a special moment that I'm glad you got to capture. It stinks that it wasn't, like the Cinderella Hollywood story that came with saving the Colts season and pushing them back into the playoffs and all that stuff. That would have been just unbelievable. But it was worth writing. It was worth talking about. It's worth talking about now. Like he earned that. And again, I'm not gonna say he earned my respect or any of that stuff. I already thought like very highly of Phillip Rivers, but like, these 3 games that he came back in Indianapolis have been really, really cool to watch. And he's just the guy I always thought he was, which is awesome.
Yeah, the quote that stuck out to me was not necessarily the one where he said, I have no regrets. That was true from the start. But when someone asked about the game being meaningless and why he was so fired up about it, my lead into the story was how he was getting after the officials for a third, I think it was a third quarter catch call that it ended up standing. But point being, no one will remember that play 20 years from now but Phillip Rivers. And he cared that much in that moment. He's yelling at the officials. He's trying to get up to the line of scrimmage. He's trying to do the whole thing of winning. And he said, those games we played in the backyard and we were 10 years old, they weren't meaningless, right? Nobody gave a riff about those, but you went home crying or you went home happy. So there's no such thing. Everything we do matters. And I was like, oh, Phillip Rivers, you great human being. I could just kiss you. What a great
It's
guy, man. I mean, come on.
I
Like
love it.
that resonated. And the last thing I'll say on it from my own personal standpoint is it reminds me of what my dad has taught me for years. And I remember
Hmm.
hearing this maybe when I was 15 or 16, and now I'm 30. And he told me two things. One, life is always harder for people who want something rather than those who don't. So he was
Yep.
like, I remember being in college and calling him like, dude, man, this is hard trying to get this degree. And he didn't go to college, but he always encouraged me and my sister to go. And my mom, she's got a master's degree, so I feel like I'm still behind in that regard. But
Hmm.
calling him, he was like, look, man, I didn't go to school, and I know you like think this is hard, but trust me, if you want a certain lifestyle, if you want a certain future for you and your future family, you got to make sure you pass that class. You got to make sure you do the hard. And so that
Yep.
resonated. And then the other thing my pops always told me, which really hit home after hearing Philip, was if you give Eric, the way he phrased it was, I'm sorry, if you give everything, you're not guaranteed to get anything. But
Yeah.
if you give nothing, you're guaranteed to give nothing. So he
Yeah.
always told me, like, dude, you might put everything you want, especially when I started out in journalism. It was like, you might
Yeah.
put everything you want into this and never get to where I am now. And you got to live with that. But you never know if you just don't try. And I think that
Right.
is what's the coolest part about the Phillip Rivers experiment is he came and he tried. And was it always a pipe dream? Yes. Was it pretty much always going to end this way? Probably 99% of the universes we live in. Yes.
Yeah.
But hell, man, he gave it a try. And I think he not necessarily earned the respect because he had the respect already of his peers, but I
Right.
think it kind of just sent a little more of a shockwave into maybe those who are younger and maybe not as enamored with Phillip Rivers like we once were, Jim, with him knowing him from his heydays and with the Chargers and stuff like that. So cool moment. His high school team came out, family and all
Yeah.
that stuff. So
Great.
that should be his last start in the NFL. And for those wondering, 'cause I got some clarification on this, Jim, he does currently have the longest active streak of starts among quarterbacks because technically his start streak did not end when he was retired for 5 years.
Right.
So that should become officially and to an end at 243, which would be the second longest streak in the NFL behind Brett Favre. That should come to an end come Sunday against Houston as Riley Leonard is poised to be the starter for this team, which makes sense. I mean, we'll get an official announcement here probably tomorrow
Yeah.
from Shane Steichen, but I mean, read the tea leaves. Shout out to Stephen Holder and Jeremy Fowler from ESPN. They reported that Riley's going to start.
Yeah.
Not something that anybody should be surprised by. But to that end, Jim, now that we got all the mushy stuff out the way,
Yeah.
no disrespect to Riley Leonard. I mean, yes, you are on the team. Yes, you are part of the future. But big picture wise,
Yeah.
Riley Leonard starting in week 18 is not on the totem pole right now as far as
No.
things we should be discussing. So let's start with I went to elephant in the room, but boy, there is no elephant in the room. It's right out there in front of you. I feel like there is
Yeah.
nothing
This
hiding.
is it.
Chris Ballard, this
Yeah.
is year 9.
Yep.
Should he get a 10th season? And I won't put you on the spot like that. I'll ask you this because I was going through this with Kevin Bowen on the Fan earlier here in Indy. How much of this do you weigh the 9 seasons versus the 1 season?
Yeah.
And is there like a percentage that you would give? Like, is it 80-20? Is it 90-10? Is it 70-30? Because in a vacuum, I could say, man, this 1 year, he should be brought back. But then
Yeah.
when I step out of that vacuum and look at the 9-year vacuum, I'm like, there's no way in hell he deserves a 10th season. So how do you kind of break it down?
I don't know. I guess I'm trying to figure out
I'm with
how
you.
Carly's gonna. I don't know how to do it. I'm trying to figure out how Carly's gonna do it. I mean, and how again. I don't know how fair it is to just say Carly. Maybe it's her and her sisters making this collective decision. I'm not sure, but if I just say Carly from here on out, know that I mean all of them.
Yeah, she is the principal owner for what's that's worth.
Right. Yeah. I don't know. I don't even know what I would do. Like I told you, I think we talked about this on the last podcast. I'm so conflicted because this team had a lot go against it this year. They proved, I think I saw Stephen Holder tweeting this out, bringing him up the second time on this podcast. Shout out to, but it was essentially like they weren't just beating bad teams early in the year to get to 7-1, 8-2. They were pounding teams. They were obliterating teams. It's like they weren't just like surviving against bad, like, kind of like you see like the Broncos do, winning all these stupid one-score games or,
Yeah.
all that stuff. Like they were just blowing teams out of the water. And not, again, like this wasn't like a few games. This was half the season. This was 10 games into the season, essentially. Like it's hard. It's hard to wrap my head around it. Like, last year Chris Ballard, I think he started his end of the season press conference with, "We're not close." And it's hard not to look at this team and not think that they were close. Like if Daniel Jones doesn't go down or hurt his leg before the Achilles, like it's hard not to think that this team wasn't close to, at least clinching a playoff spot. At least fighting for the AFC South title down the stretch. All those things that would have been, his saving grace, really. So that's this year, and then you weigh the 9. Like I said, it's nothing, but you can't. It's disappointment. 8 years of before this of disappointment. Like there's no other way to frame it. You've got one playoff appearance. It was with Phillip Rivers. I'm sorry, two playoff appearances. One with Phillip Rivers, one with Andrew Luck. One playoff win. Like no division titles, which is crazy since the other 3 teams in your division have all won it multiple times. It's bad. It's really bad. And so the place I take it though is what's best for the Colts going forward. And I'm sure you and Kevin talked about this, but like, I think there's a world in which the hard reset is the right thing to do, which is just tear it down. And that means like, yeah, if you're getting rid of Ballard, get rid of Steichen. But this also comes with like trade Michael Pittman, trade JT, trade Buckner, like tear it down, hard reset, and start over and hope that that's the quickest path back to true contention, not just like Band-Aid contention, like you were writing about the other day. Like not just like, hey, we can get to 8, 9, 10 wins like this Colts team has always flirted with for essentially in the Ballard era. Like tear it down and try to build this thing into something real. The problem is with that, you being bad next year doesn't help you because you don't have your first round pick.
Yeah.
So you're not going to benefit this year from having the first round pick, but that's gone. It's like essentially just say like, hey, we traded that pick for Sauce Gardner, done. But like you move on to next year, and if you're bad, if you do the teardown thing, how you getting your quarterback? Like how or even if it's not the quarterback, like even if you invest in something else, like you're not bottoming out doesn't do you any good. So that is tough. It's tough both on the sell to a GM. Like, man, it's hard. It's going to be, again, listen, there are only 32 of these jobs. So people will want it, but like, it's not going to be the most desirable job in my opinion, because you're going to be, here's the sell, right? You got a quarterback, maybe coming back with a long injury history, coming off a torn Achilles. Cool. That's a rough start. You don't have any first round picks for the next 2 years, and your defense is old and expensive. You want to come to Indy? Like it's tough, man. It's a tough sell for a new GM. So I'm not saying you should keep Ballard because of that, but I guess is the argument then, I'll spin this back to you, is the argument then you give this one more year to try to figure out, like if they can get Daniel Jones back and they can give this one more shot to try to contend, try to recapture the magic of 7-1, 8-2. Is that what you do because of the position that you've put yourself in with this trade? Like I'm so conflicted with it. And I know, again, I said this last week and I'll say it again. Like, I know I saw the comments beneath your story. Like, everybody just wants Ballard gone and fired. But you also have to understand, like, a hard reset's tough to stomach, man. It's not going to be easy for a few years. And again, you don't benefit from it next year. You just don't.
You really don't. But I also think, Jim, that at some point, do things just get stale? And do you just need change for the sake of change? Because every rendition of the Ballard teams just haven't really hit the marker. Whether it was back in 2020, where it did finally work out for a year with Phillip Rivers, you still have nothing to show for it after that. I mean, 2021, you went right back to where you were, without having much direction. The Carson Wentz experiment failed. 2022 was a disaster. 2023, so when I look at this team, it would be easier for me to say, okay, injuries got the best of you. Yeah. You probably aren't really an 8-9 team if they lose on Sunday because you were so good when you were healthy, but you also don't have anything to fall back on when it comes to your resume. If you had won the division, if you had made the playoffs more frequently, then you could say, well, you know what, that 1 year, 2025, man, we really got screwed. I went all in, I did all these things, but wait a second, before you get rid of me, look at what I did elsewhere.
Yeah.
There's not much to really look at. I remember sitting at the combine, I believe, with Kevin, and we had Ballard on a radio show here in Indy, and I think Kevin might have asked him, what is your greatest accomplishment, being GM or something? And he went back maybe to the 2020 season.
Yeah, he's very fond of that team.
It was like, man, like that was 5 years ago at this point. Like, if I ask you what's the best thing you've done in your marriage, Jim, and you tell your wife something from 5 years ago, brother, I don't know how long you're gonna be sleeping in the same bed. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know how long that's gonna work. And so, I don't want to use that analogy, but boy, I'm thinking I don't know how many people would think that's a very fond compliment of your tenure or how long you've been around. And that to me is kind of how I look at these things. And I'm laughing because my parents have been married for over 30 plus years, and boy, my mom gets mad at my dad if he forgets, like, to take the trash out. If you tell me, oh, well, I took it out 5 years ago, man, that ain't gonna help you. So that's kind of where I'm at with it with Ballard, and why I'm probably more on the side of, even if you don't necessarily have a concrete future, you probably still should reset. And even on top of that, when I look at people who are like, well, who's gonna take this job? Who's gonna want it? It's still a very coveted job. Like, I don't want to like act like it's not. It's only one in 32, really 31 if you're counting Jerry down there in Dallas being the GM and the owner. So there's not many of these jobs out there. So you'll have your list of people. And then, as I always say, a big bag of money will solve a lot of hesitancy in taking a leap or getting a job. And so that to me is part of the equation as well.
What's the dynamic of Ballard versus Steichen? Is it if clean, like both go, one stays, like, because again, that's another one of those things where, again, I already kind of laid out where it's not the most appealing job for a GM. If you tell him you have to keep this coach, you make it less appealing. Again, not to say that Shane hasn't earned some, grace, just because, again, I think offensively, at least, like, he's done a pretty good job given the hands he's been dealt. Like, the Gardner Minshew season, he almost had them win the division. Like, this team, he had resurrected Daniel Jones's career. Like, offensively, he's done a heck of a job in certain respects. Obviously, there's plenty of flaws. We don't have to get into all of it. But my point is essentially, like, do you think there's a road there where you say lose Ballard, keep Steichen?
Marriott Bonvoy is the official hotel partner of US Soccer. Join Marriott Bonvoy today to get closer to the game with exclusive perks, unforgettable experiences, and benefits that go beyond the pitch. Spring Hill Suites, part of Marriott Bonvoy, offers complimentary hot breakfast and spacious all-suite accommodations, perfect for the whole team, with room for up to 6 guests. Make your next getaway a win. Learn more at springhillsuites.marriott.com.
I don't necessarily think there is, personally. I think that when it comes to, how do I describe this? When it comes to resetting, I think if you get rid of Ballard, you should just reset it all. And that goes from the head coach to letting the new head coach pick his staff. I don't think any of the coordinators should be safe after that. Players, if you reset, just hit it hard. Quentin Nelson, what can I get for you on the market? Jonathan Taylor, what can I get for you? And I get that might not be the most sexy option, but this idea that they can just kind of tweak things no longer appeals to me. And to be honest, Jim, I feel like that's the only real thing that they can do if they choose to run this back in any capacity, is just tweak it a little bit. If you convince yourself that if we're just healthy in 2026, then maybe we have a shot. But beyond the injuries, I do think there is a certain psychological factor of the players we've had here have not won. And this idea that you're going to suddenly flip that after having Kenny Moore for years, having Grover Stewart, having DeForest Buckner, having Quentin Nelson, having Jonathan Taylor, having Michael Pittman Jr., like, what have these guys won as a collective? And I get that a lot of that goes back to the quarterback, but still, I just can't necessarily sit here and justify this pipe dream that all of a sudden their window which we thought was open. I will admit that. I thought the window was open when they were rolling 8-2. You traded for Sauce, you're
Sure.
coming back from
How could you
Berlin.
not?
I'm thinking, wow, you got an opportunity, you got a shot here. And I just don't necessarily believe that is the case going forward. So, my opinion, either you run it back and you keep all the pieces there, whatever, that's fine. Or if you reset this, you blow it all up. Like, I don't want to be coming back to training camp in August, Jim, standing out there in the sun, and you're trying to tell me that the combination of Daniel Jones, JT, and Michael Pittman Jr., along with Alec Pierce, who needs to get paid and brought back, along with other players, will suddenly be different than last year. Because to that point, I just can't get behind it. One thing I do want to ask you, though,
Yeah.
do you think, regardless of what decision Carly makes, that she should speak about it? Because I say this because most owners don't really speak at the end of the season unless they make a bunch of changes. But if these guys are brought back, given the angst among the fan base, 5 years without making the playoffs, do you think she should say something or speak or explain why she's doing this beyond just putting out like a little letter or statement?
Oh, I was just gonna say, I think that's all you're gonna get. Like, I think
I
it'll be a
know that's
statement.
not all we're gonna get, but I'm just asking for like the sake of transparency. Like,
Yeah,
is that a
yeah,
conversation worth considering as the new owner? I'm not saying
yeah.
does it really matter? Is it optics more than anything? But I just want to know. Like, I feel like that would be really hard to justify just a little statement until we see you at the owners meetings.
I would appreciate that if she brought Ballard back and Ballard is doing his end of season press conference, if she was sitting right next to him and she could field some questions as well, like, why are you doing this, and all that stuff. I think, again, I'm not going to say she owes it to anybody. I don't think she has to do that. It's not something owners typically do.
Yeah.
So, but I do think, yeah, I mean, if she puts out a statement, that would probably suffice. But, like, yeah, I think getting out there and owning your decision is probably the best look in terms of, if that's what you're gonna do, is keep Ballard and keep Steichen. I would, again, if I was on her PR team or whatever, Colts PR, I would say, like, I think this could be the right thing to do for you, not just for fans or to please the media or whatever, but the right thing to do for you is to face the music. I think people will respect it one way or the other. Even if they don't like your decision, you go out there and you explain what your thinking was, yeah. So again, I don't know. I don't know. Again, I don't even want to say I'm betting she won't or I'm betting she will. I don't know her. Like, we don't know her yet. We don't know what the way she wants to handle this team is. We did get a nice, peek at her, via our colleague here at The Athletic, Jordan Rodriguez, showed a nice feature on her that came out today. You guys should all check that out. I will say that, like, reading that, and again, that's the way features go, is sometimes they're, like, I don't want to read too much into a story, but, like, it talked a lot about her, how much she values the interpersonal relationships, how much she values the honesty that she can have with Chris
Yeah.
Ballard, particularly, like, a lot of the true back and forth, where, like, they can be. I think they've been beneficial for each other. Like, in some ways, it sounds like Chris Ballard and her have tried to educate each other on just being better football people, frankly, and being more honest and open about stuff. So when I read that story, it did make me think that, and this is the question I want to ask you, is like, because the first thing we thought, let me set this up. The first thing you and I thought after Jim Irsay had died was that there could be this possibility of, at least the first thing I thought, I should say. The first thing I thought was, there could be this like gap year, right? Like, this, like, okay, let's take everything in, let's see what's going on. Not gonna get any make big decisions right now. Just want to see how it goes. And then, as we learned, Carly's been deeply involved, and the rest of this, again, the other sisters too, but, like, she's been deeply involved in the organization for a long time. She understands what's going on. There wasn't really a need to be, like, to get up to speed. She's up to speed. That was so. The thought going into the season was no gap year. This is pretty much what she said, right? Like, no gap year. Like, we expect to be better. Our expectations are higher. We haven't met the standards here, and Chris and Shane know that. That said, it's a big decision to make. Is your first major big decision? I mean, maybe
Yes.
second. I guess the Sauce Gardner
Yes.
trade is your probably your first major decision, but second one. So
To be
yeah, the
fair to
first
you
major
though,
decision.
Jim, this is bigger. This has to be bigger.
Yeah, it is. And do you want your first major decision to be firing a guy that you've kind of come up with in a lot of ways, right? And Ballard and him, like her again, their relationship has developed over the last almost decade now. Um, Somebody you trust, clearly, and preparing the city for a hard reset. Like that's a major decision to make in year one. Not saying she shouldn't or can't or won't or whatever. Again, this is no reflection on Carly. I don't know her. I'm just saying that's for any new owner. That's a big thing. That's a big thing to do is your first major decision. I'm not saying she won't. And I again from the things that we've heard from players about her, I think it's definitely in her. I think she can. She's more than capable of making a tough decision like that. I just it's a hard one to make when you it's personal. How can it not be, right? How can it not be personal? That's tough. It's gonna make this complicated.
Yeah, and I subscribe to the theory that everything is personal in life because we deal with people. So people who are like, don't take it personal. Oh, I take everything personal. This is a personal life we're living. But
Yeah,
here's a couple quotes to kind of keep in mind.
yeah,
One from back in June. She said, as my dad said before he passed, Chris and Shane know that they have things they need to fix. We talked about not micromanaging people, but also we have a standard here and it hasn't been good enough. Now, she went on to say, I have confidence in these two to correct these things. And I believe it was the dean, Mike Chappell, Fox 59, might have asked her, well, is it playoffs or bust? And the response was more or less, at least on this front, when it comes to Carly, was I don't have a crystal ball. What about injuries? And so she mentioned the injuries thing pretty early and kind of gave herself that out. It was kind of savvy thinking. I was like, she's been around the block a few times. She's been around the
uh-huh.
team a few times, a few years.
Yep.
So, how much will she weigh all of those things? Because on one hand, she's saying, we haven't been good enough. And I highly doubt losing your last 7 games potentially is good enough, obviously, in the eyes of her. And on
Right.
the other hand, I can't just be so rigid that I don't look at what plainly happened in front of me. So
Right.
for all the fans out there, and I get the frustration, and I think it's justified, certainly to a degree,
Of
but
course.
for those who are trying to how do I say, like, find this one size fit all answer, I just don't think it's necessarily that unless you just blow it all up. But even then, I can see reasoning, sound arguments for why that shouldn't be the case. I'm not saying
Yep.
I'm necessarily on that side because I subscribe to the idea that things get stale. I mean, not to get too outside of the Colts, but it's like the Steelers, the
Yeah.
Ravens, their
Yep.
coaching situations right now, it just feels stale. And it might not necessarily be this one smoking gun, but boy, when you look back at the track record of Chris Ballard, it is not a good one with this team. Even if
No.
you look at Shane Steichen, who I think to a lesser degree is on the hot seat and has a warm seat, but being 2-9 against the Jaguars and the Texans during his 3-year tenure, that is egregious. And other teams find a way to win. Why haven't you been able to win some of these December and January games from a coaching standpoint? And mind you, one of those wins out of the two that they have was the overtime thriller in last year's season finale that meant nothing.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I'll get a little sarcastic there, but I mean, you got
Yeah.
one real win against the last two division title winners in the AFC. So I can't necessarily look at him and say, you're safe. I mean, I don't know how many coaches, regardless of the circumstances, injured quarterbacks, whatever, can keep their job after missing the postseason the first 3 years. And then, not to mention, you have questions at quarterback still. I mean, the list goes. If you look at the three pillars of a franchise, Jim,
Yeah. They
they
got.
have questions at all three of the biggest ones, which is head coach, GM, and quarterback.
Yeah. That's the thing. The name we haven't even mentioned yet, and it is an indictment both on Chris Ballard and Shane Steichen is Anthony Richardson. Like that didn't work. What blame whoever you want or whatever it is, whatever happened, it
That's
didn't
a
work.
very good point you just brought up.
So that's like it's one of those things that they took their swing and they missed on that. I mean, he's not he's not part of their future. Like it's just
Nah,
not going to be
no.
unless some new GM or coach comes in and they want to
Yeah.
take a swing at it, or he's under contract or all that. But like, I don't think he needs to be somebody we factor in. And again, that's not my opinion on his potential or any of that stuff. It's just
Yeah.
the way I think this team sees him is that he's not part of the future. He's not part of their plan for the future. So they and that's on them. That's an indictment on them. That's a the black mark on their record is that they missed on the quarterback that they picked. They handpicked at number 4 in 2023. So
That's a very good point you just made. Because I'm thinking to myself real quick, Jim, like, how many GMs get that many chances?
not no, I mean Ballard's already surpassed like how like he's in the Chris Greer tier of like you've
Yeah.
gotten more chances than I expected you to get,
Especially
with the
with a
track record.
miss that big. And again, I want to make this very clear for those listening because I've gotten a lot of feedback about this where, oh, Jim Irsay was pushing for the team to draft a quarterback. Yes, that is true.
Yeah.
But they drafted Anthony Richardson because Chris Ballard and Shane Steichen believed he could be a franchise quarterback. They brought in Shane Steichen in part because they knew they were going to draft a young quarterback and they trusted that he was going to develop him. And he convinced them. He told them, I can make this work. And now it seems like him and Richardson are just never going to be on the same page fully. And I don't know if you can absolve him of that just by saying the former owner wanted a quarterback. Like,
No.
no. Everyone has some skin in this game for sure.
He's culpable for that, no doubt. Now, the flip side of that would be, did he redeem himself with rejuvenating Daniel Jones's career? Honestly, like,
Yeah.
I mean, I know we're probably coming toward the end here, but I just like I typically tend to be a process over results person, which is not
Yeah.
always a good thing to be. Like it's not always. I get, but like I can't stay here and say like I pound the table and say they should fire Chris Ballard when I think for the most part since pretty much his end of season press conference, I've been supportive, I should say, of every move they've made. We demanded that he get more aggressive in free agency, and we demanded he get more aggressive on the trade market. We demanded like that you find a quarterback solution. That they do well in the draft. Like he did all those things. Like he did get more aggressive in free agency, and it kind of worked. He did he did take the tight end in the draft that has been hugely helpful. Obviously, some of the other picks we'll see, but he did make the trade for Sauce Gardner, which again, looking back, maybe not the best trade, obviously, but like process wise, I've been supportive of that. So it'd be very hypocritical for me to come out and be like, well, he made all these stupid mistakes and that's why he should be fired. No, again, at the end of the day, his job is to win games, and that process did not lead to wins. For all the reasons that we just discussed, but. I'm looking at their DVOA right now. This team is 4th in DVOA, which again is whatever. But it's like,
crazy.
God, it's so hard to like get your head around. Like, was the process right? Because it looks like in a lot of ways the process was right, and they got to this point, and maybe a few tweaks next year. And it's such an easy story to tell yourself that. And again, maybe that's the story that Carly hears is we were injuries and a few tweaks away from this being a real thing. But again, I'm not saying I'm supportive of one or the other. I would understand both, frankly. But I think, at the end of the day, I think your argument of like maybe this team just needs a new set of eyes makes a lot of
that's how it
sense, too.
feels. I'm like, man, you're trying to make this work. You're trying to bend this into something that it just hasn't been. And at some point, man, I get that your process might have been one thing, but this is a results based league, if it
It is.
ever has been.
I get it.
And to be frank, it is a results based league for the players more than anybody. So if we're talking about guys who haven't produced on the field, they're usually gone. I mean, A.D. Mitchell's one of them. He didn't produce 2 years, year and a half, you're gone. So that same philosophy, I think, needs to be applied to the leadership of this team. And that won't change as far as the ownership, obviously, with Carl Eric Gordon. They're not going anywhere.
Sure.
But how do
Nope.
you approach your other pillars of your franchise, that being Chris Ballard, that being Shane Steichen, and then obviously your quarterback decision? I would assume that Daniel Jones is brought back because you don't necessarily have a lot of great options otherwise. But again, every time I feel like I know what the Colts are going to do, they do something else that kind of throws me for a loop. Not necessarily from this conversation part of it, but cover team for 4 years now, Jim, and it gets crazier by the day. So
No, and if they don't bring Steichen back, I don't think it's Steichen and Ballard. I don't think it's a foregone conclusion Daniel Jones is the quarterback on this team next year.
exactly. If you're a new
he was
coach,
happy
a new
with
GM,
Yeah, you might want both sides, right? Daniel Jones liked playing for Shane Steichen.
Yeah.
Like he might want to go somewhere else and play quarterback. If this team if they do the reset, the quarterback thing is up for grabs for me.
1,000%. So that's what we'll leave you with. There's a lot more questions in this podcast and answers. There is
Ugh.
one more game to play. I'll be making that trip out to Houston, and then I'll be flying back the same night, Sunday night, to make sure I can be there for the exit interviews and meetings the next day with all the players come next Monday morning. So keep it locked here on the James Boyd Podcast. Over at The Athletic, I'll have plenty of coverage to come. Enjoy the holidays. Be safe out there. Don't stay out too late on New Year's and New Year's Eve and all those things. But other than that, if you're looking for some positivity to end the podcast with, I guess as an Illinois alum, I can wish good luck to the Hoosiers who stomped my Illinois as they go.
You don't mean it though.
You know, I don't mean a lot of things I say, Jim. That's probably why I get in a lot of trouble, as it is. But yeah, until next time, my friends, stay safe, and we'll talk to you very soon.
Marriott Bonvoy is the official hotel partner of US Soccer. Join Marriott Bonvoy today to get closer to the game with exclusive perks, unforgettable experiences, and benefits that go beyond the pitch. Spring Hill Suites, part of Marriott Bonvoy, offers complimentary hot breakfast and spacious all-suite accommodations, perfect for the whole team, with room for up to 6 guests. Make your next getaway a win. Learn more at springhillsuites.marriott.com.